stop right there. If you're tired of hearing the same old advice about building a community, post more, engage more, be consistent, then this video is for you. Because let's face it, all that generic advice doesn't actually solve the real problem. Building a strong online community isn't about checking off a list of tasks. It's about creating something real, something that lasts. The truth is, most communities online are built on shallow interactions and fleeting attention. But what if I told you there's a different way? A way to build a community that's not just active, but loyal, engaged and invested in your vision. Yeah, it's possible, but it requires breaking away from the cookie-cutter strategies everyone else is using. Stick around, because in this video, I'm going to share the unconventional yet proven methods you need to start building a thriving, dedicated community that actually cares. So, if you're ready to stop playing by the rules and start creating something that truly connects, hit that play button and let's dive in. This is where things change. Number 1, the anti-politeness approach. Create bold conversations. You know what's funny? We've all been trained to be polite, to hold back our opinions, to say yes when we really mean no. But what if I told you that being too polite is the very thing that's holding you back from truly connecting with the people around you? Yes, trust me on this. If you want to create bold conversations, spark genuine engagement, and build deeper connections, you might need to throw politeness out the window, just for a moment. I know. It sounds a little shocking, doesn't it? But stay with me. Think about the last time you had a conversation that felt, well, real. Not the, how's the weather small talk. Not the, I'll say this to be nice fluff. I'm talking about the kind of conversation where someone said something that made you pause, think, maybe even challenge your own beliefs. You know the type. Those conversations where you don't have to hold back your thoughts, and it feels like you're truly getting to the heart of the matter. Now, here's the thing. Those conversations don't happen when we're all busy trying to be perfectly polite and avoid stepping on anyone's toes. They happen when we're bold enough to speak our truth, even if it's a little uncomfortable. Here's where the anti-politeness approach comes in. What if you stopped censoring yourself to avoid conflict? What if, instead of choosing your words so carefully, you simply said, what's on your mind? Let's be clear, I'm not suggesting you become rude or disrespectful. Far from it. I'm saying there's power in cutting through the sugar-coating and getting to the real stuff, the stuff that sparks real conversation. The truth is, we've been taught that avoiding controversy is the way to go, but in reality, controversy is what gets people talking, thinking, and connecting. When you challenge the norm, you invite others to do the same. And guess what? That's when the magic happens. I know this might sound a little counterintuitive, but hear me out. I had a friend who used to always sit in the back of the room at meetings, nodding along politely, never saying much. He'd offer little insights here and there, but he'd hold back a lot of what he really wanted to say. One day, he decided to change that. Instead of agreeing with everything, he disagreed. He spoke up when something didn't sit right with him, even if it was a bit uncomfortable. At first, people were shocked. They weren't used to him challenging the status quo. But soon the room started buzzing with new ideas, new perspectives. And guess what? He wasn't just heard, he was respected. People started seeking his opinion because they knew he wasn't afraid to say what others were thinking but weren't brave enough to say out loud. It didn't ruin relationships, it built them. Now, I'm not saying that you need to start going off on people or be deliberately abrasive, but the next time you find yourself in a conversation or meeting, ask yourself, what if I didn't hold back? What if I just said it like it is? That's the anti-politeness approach at its core. It's about bringing rawness, authenticity, and even a little bit of discomfort to the table, because that's where growth happens. This is about reclaiming your voice, your agency, and your right to be heard without worrying about stepping on someone's toes. It's about finding that balance between respect and authenticity, where you're no longer just nodding along to fit in. It's about standing tall and saying, "I'm here, and my opinion matters, even if it challenges what's been said." Imagine the confidence you'd feel knowing that your voice is valued, that your words are powerful enough to shift the dynamics of a room. So, here's your challenge. The next time you find yourself in a conversation, whether online or in person, skip the niceties. Cut through the surface-level chatter. Be bold. Share your true thoughts, even if it feels a little risky, because when you do that, you don't just open up the conversation, you open up a world of possibilities. Your space, your voice, your impact. You've got this. Number 2, gamify everything. Reward. Non-compliance. Here's a wild thought. What if not following the rules was exactly what you should be rewarding? Yeah, I know, it sounds crazy, right? But stick with me for a second. What if, instead of punishing non-compliance, we flipped the script and turned it into something that could actually fuel growth and creativity? Now, before you start thinking I've lost it, hear me out. The idea here is to gamify non-compliance, to reward those little rebellions that spark innovation and push boundaries. Let's be real. How many times have you followed the rules, played it safe, and ended up bored out of your mind? Or worse, stuck in a loop of mediocrity? We've all been there. You know the type, sitting in a meeting or brainstorming session where everyone's so busy agreeing with each other that nothing ever gets done. The conversation drifts to nowhere, and you're left wondering, why is everyone so scared to say what they really think? It's like everyone's playing the same game, but no one is actually challenging the rules. So, what happens? You end up stuck, not moving forward, not growing. Now imagine if instead of sticking to the usual formula, you rewarded people for stepping out of line. You know, for those moments when they challenge the norm or do things a little differently. Instead of discouraging the person who goes off script, you give them a high five, metaphorically of course, and say, "Nice move, keep it up." You might be thinking, but isn't that risky? What if people go too far? Here's the twist. Gamifying non-compliance doesn't mean chaos. It means creating an environment where people feel safe to take creative risks, to break free from the monotony, and yes, sometimes to fail forward. When you do that, you spark energy and innovation that simply wouldn't have happened if everyone just stayed in their lane. Let me give you an example from my own life. A while ago, I was working on a project where everything had to be perfect, and there was a lot of pressure to stick to the plan. Everyone was playing it safe, sticking to the same ideas, and trying to meet expectations. But one day, someone on the team, totally out of the blue, decided to take a risk. They suggested an idea that seemed completely out there and honestly a little impractical. At first, everyone looked at them like they had 3 heads, but then something surprising happened. Instead of dismissing it, the team decided to play along to see what might come of it. And you know what? That non-compliant idea ended up being the spark that changed the whole project. It wasn't perfect at first, but it got the conversation going, led to new insights, and ultimately pushed the project in a direction that was way more innovative than if we had stuck to the original plan. We rewarded that rebellious move because it got us thinking outside of the box. This is where the real magic happens, when you stop punishing the rule breakers and start celebrating the risk takers. By gamifying non-compliance, you create a culture where failure isn't feared, where people feel safe to speak their minds and test new ideas. It's not about ignoring the rules, it's about encouraging people to bend them and see what happens. It's about building a space where creativity thrives, where the status quo is always up for debate, and where the unexpected is welcomed with open arms. When you embrace this approach, you're not just creating an environment that's more dynamic, you're also creating one that's more empowering. Think about it. How many times have you held back an idea because you were worried it wouldn't fit the mold? How many times have you been afraid to break away from the expected path because it didn't seem safe? This is your chance to let go of that fear and embrace your voice, your ideas, and your ability to innovate. It's about giving yourself and others the freedom to explore, make mistakes, and learn along the way. So, next time you're in a meeting, brainstorming session, or even just a casual conversation, don't be afraid to reward those who step off the beaten path. Encourage the rebels, the risk-takers, and the non-compliant ones, because they're the ones who are truly moving things forward. Your creativity, your growth, and your success will thank you for it. It's time to gamify everything. And yes, even reward non-compliance. After all, when you embrace the chaos, you might just find the next big thing. Your ideas, your energy, your breakthroughs are waiting. Number 3, the troll to engage method. Channel the chaos. What if I told you that you could turn chaos into your greatest ally? Yes, I'm talking about channeling that troll energy for good. Before you roll your eyes or think I'm suggesting something outlandish, hear me out. The troll to engage method isn't about being rude or disruptive for the sake of it. It's about harnessing the energy of controversy and turning it into an opportunity to connect, engage, and spark meaningful conversation. I know it sounds a little like a contradiction, but stick with me. Think about the last time you saw a post or comment online that totally stirred things up. It could have been something as simple as a heated opinion, an unexpected take, or even a tiny bit of harmless trolling. You know the type. The comments that get people riled up, that make everyone want to have their say. But here's the thing. While some might roll their eyes and scroll on, others are diving in, commenting, arguing, debating, and that's where the magic happens. It's not the negativity that's key here, it's the engagement. People are engaging because something about that comment, that opinion, sparked a reaction. It got people thinking, talking, and feeling something. That's the power of the troll to engage method. Now, you might be thinking, but doesn't that just create drama? Well, yes and no. Drama for the sake of drama isn't the goal, but using controversy to spark genuine engagement is where the value lies. The truth is, we're all constantly looking for something that challenges us, something that gets our attention and breaks us out of our usual routines. Why do we enjoy movies with plot twists? Why do we listen to debates? Because they push our buttons in ways that make us think harder, feel more, and connect deeper with the ideas being shared. And that's exactly what happens when you channel a little bit of that troll energy. Let me give you an example. A few months ago, I was working on a project for a client who was hesitant about taking any risks in their social media strategy. They wanted everything to be safe and nice, no controversy, no bold statements. But I knew that wasn't going to get them the engagement they wanted. So I took a risk. I wrote a post with a very controversial opinion, something that I knew would get people talking. It wasn't offensive, but it certainly wasn't something everyone would agree with. When the post went live, at first I thought, oh no, what if this backfires? But within hours, people started commenting, debating, sharing their own perspectives. The conversation exploded. Some were disagreeing, some were agreeing, but the point was, everyone was engaged. The post was getting shared far more than anything they'd ever posted before. The engagement was off the charts, and yes, it was a little uncomfortable at times, but that's exactly what made it so effective. The thing is, we've all been conditioned to avoid conflict, to play it safe and smooth things over. But the truth is, conflict sells. It's how movements are started, how conversations are ignited, how people are motivated to take action. By channeling a little bit of chaos, you invite others to step out of their comfort zones too. It's about challenging the status quo and inviting a deeper level of engagement than what we usually see in the safe space. What's so powerful about the troll to engage method is that it gives you permission to be bold without fear. It's about knowing that people don't just want to hear the agreeable stuff, they want to be provoked, challenged, and inspired to think differently. This isn't about being hurtful or malicious, but rather being unapologetically authentic, sharing something that's raw and real enough to get people to stop scrolling and pay attention. It's a little messy, sure, but that's where the real connection happens. So, here's the deal. Next time you feel the urge to post something or share an idea, consider this. How can I channel a little chaos into this conversation? How can I challenge the norm, get people to think, and invite a deeper discussion? Maybe it's a bold statement, a challenging opinion, or just an unexpected twist on something. Don't be afraid to stir the pot, because in doing so, you'll be creating the space for real engagement to happen. Remember, your thoughts, your voice, your ideas are powerful. When you embrace a little chaos and invite others to do the same, you're creating an environment where people feel compelled to speak up, to engage, and to connect. So go ahead, channel that troll energy and see what kind of conversations you can spark. After all, sometimes it's the chaos that creates the most memorable connections. Your space, your impact, your voice. Number 4, divide and conquer. Create sub-communities for chaos. What if I told you that chaos doesn't have to be a bad thing? In fact, what if I told you that you could actually use chaos to your advantage? I know, it sounds a bit counterintuitive, but stick with me. The trick isn't to avoid chaos, it's to divide and conquer it. Think about it. When you look at a massive, overwhelming task, it can feel like too much to handle. But what happens if you break it down into smaller, more manageable pieces? Suddenly, it's not so intimidating, right? Well, the same principle applies to communities, conversations, and even content creation. The key is creating sub-communities that thrive off a little bit of chaos, and then using those to push forward in ways you never thought possible. Now you might be thinking, but isn't dividing things up just going to make everything more fragmented? Well, yes and no. You see, when you divide your audience or community into smaller, more specific groups, each with their own purpose, theme, or interest, you allow them to thrive in a space that feels more personal and manageable. It's kind of like hosting a party with multiple rooms instead of one big room. Instead of having everyone crammed together, you create spaces where different people can interact, find common ground, and stir things up in ways that keep everyone on their toes. We've all been in those large, messy online spaces where it feels like everyone's talking, but no one's really listening. The conversation is all over the place, with too many opinions fighting for attention, and it can feel like total chaos. You know the type. A Twitter thread with 100 responses, all different, all fighting for the top comment. It's exhausting, right? Now imagine if you could take those 100 responses and break them into smaller groups, where the conversation was more focused, the stakes higher, and the engagement deeper. That's the beauty of dividing and conquering. So, here's the twist. Instead of letting chaos swallow you whole, you create small, self-sustaining sub-communities within your larger community. Each one of these subgroups can focus on specific topics or interests while still being connected by a larger theme or purpose. And here's the best part. These subgroups can create their own form of chaos within a controlled environment. People start to feel more engaged, more invested, and they begin to actively participate. It's like a microcosm of the larger community, intense but in a way that benefits everyone. Let me give you a real-life example. I once managed a large online community for a brand, and while it was growing, it started to feel like everyone was talking over each other. The messages got diluted, and people weren't feeling the connection they once did. It was chaos, and not the fun kind. So I decided to try something different. Instead of keeping everything in one giant space, I broke the community into smaller subgroups, one for product enthusiasts, one for creative collaborations, and one for community events. At first, there was resistance. People were used to the chaos of the larger group and worried that the subgroups would isolate them. But soon, they started to thrive. Conversations became more targeted, engagement increased, and the overall atmosphere shifted. People weren't just talking, they were connecting in meaningful ways. The beauty of dividing and conquering chaos is that it allows you to control the flow of energy. When you break your community into smaller, more manageable groups, it allows for more targeted, intimate conversations while still being part of a larger, more dynamic whole. This doesn't just benefit the group, it benefits you too. By focusing on specific topics or niches within the larger community, you get to master the art of maintaining meaningful engagement without getting lost in the noise. You don't have to be everywhere at once. You just have to know where to direct your energy. This approach isn't just about surviving the chaos, it's about thriving in it. By creating these sub-communities, you're giving yourself and your audience permission to lean into the chaos without it feeling overwhelming. It's about reclaiming your space, your peace, and your connection with others. Each sub-community becomes a space where people can take the chaos they thrive in and channel it into something productive, engaging, and, dare I say, a little fun. So, here's the takeaway. Next time you feel like your community or conversations are becoming too overwhelming, break it down. Divide and conquer. Create those smaller spaces where chaos can run wild, but in a way that benefits everyone. Embrace the mess, but know where to direct it. Your community isn't just about surviving the noise. It's about creating meaningful connections within it. Your space, your community, your growth. Number 5. The no limits policy, full transparency and radical vulnerability. What if I told you that the key to unlocking trust, connection, and success in both your personal and professional life lies in one simple yet terrifyingly radical approach: full transparency and radical vulnerability? Yes, I know it sounds risky, a little scary maybe, but trust me, when you adopt the no limits policy, where there's no wall between who you are, what you do, and how you feel, you'll start to experience things in a whole new way. You might be thinking, but isn't that just inviting trouble? Won't people take advantage of me? I get it, I really do. But what if I told you that being open and vulnerable is the one thing that will make people connect with you on a level deeper than anything else? We've all been there, putting up walls, hiding our true selves, thinking that it's safer to keep certain things locked away. You know the type, the professional persona that's always on point, the social media highlight reel where everything looks perfect, the carefully crafted, perfect version of you that's always a little too polished. We've been taught that being vulnerable or showing cracks is a weakness. But what if it's the exact opposite? What if vulnerability isn't something to fear, but something to embrace? Now, let's take a second and think about the relationships we really value. Aren't the ones that stand the test of time the ones where we can be ourselves? The ones where there's trust, raw honesty, and a shared understanding of each other's imperfections? Here's the thing. Full transparency doesn't mean oversharing or dumping every feeling onto someone who's not ready to handle it. It's about being open about your thoughts, challenges, and desires in a way that's both respectful and empowering. It's the kind of openness that fosters real, genuine connections. Radical vulnerability, on the other hand, takes it one step further. It's not just sharing your thoughts. It's about letting people see the parts of you that are messy, unsure, and unpolished. It's showing up as a human, not just a professional or a perfect person. And yes, it can be terrifying at first. But once you embrace it, the benefits are undeniable. Let me give you an example. A while back, I was working on a big project at my internship. One that was making me a little anxious, if I'm being honest. The stakes were high, and I wasn't sure if I was going to hit the mark. So I did what I normally do. I kept my worries to myself and tried to power through. But then I had a moment of clarity. I realized that the people I was working with weren't just co-workers. They were teammates, people who could help me if I just let them in. So I decided to share my doubts, my fears, and my insecurities with them. You know what happened? They didn't judge me. They rallied behind me. Some even shared their own struggles, and suddenly, we were no longer just colleagues. We were people supporting each other. That vulnerability led to one of the best collaborative efforts I've ever been part of, and it completely shifted the way I approach both work and relationships. This is about more than just being real. It's about reclaiming your power. When you embrace full transparency and radical vulnerability, you start to let go of the fear of judgment. You stop worrying about being perfect and instead focus on being authentic. The truth is, no one can truly connect with a version of you that's constantly filtered or guarded. People want to see the real you, the messy, imperfect, raw version of you. And when they do, something amazing happens. They trust you, they understand you, they respect you. Now, I know it's not always easy to embrace this level of honesty. The urge to put up walls and protect ourselves is natural. But think about it. When you let people in, you're not just letting them see your flaws. You're letting them see your strength. Because it takes incredible courage to be open, to show your true self, and to trust others with that vulnerability. That's the kind of strength that earns respect and builds unbreakable bonds. So here's the takeaway. Embrace the no limits policy. Be transparent, be vulnerable. Let people see the real you, your flaws, your fears, your dreams. Yes, it's scary. Yes, it's uncomfortable. But in the end, it's the only way to create real, lasting connections. When you start showing up as your true self, no filters, no walls, no limits, that's when the magic happens. Your space, your peace, your authenticity. And trust me, that's a power no one can take away. Number 6, make them hate you. Provocative leadership. What if I told you that being liked isn't the key to leadership success? In fact, sometimes the best way to lead is by making them hate you. Yes, you read that right. Now, before you start wondering if I've lost my mind, hear me out. I'm not talking about being rude, dismissive, or toxic. I'm talking about embracing the concept of provocative leadership, a strategy that shakes up the status quo, challenges norms, and sometimes forces people out of their comfort zones. Because here's the truth, great leaders aren't always the ones everyone agrees with. They're the ones who stir the pot, make tough decisions, and push people to evolve. You might be thinking, but won't that make people resent me? Yes, some might. But here's the kicker, they'll respect you. And respect, that's far more valuable than being liked. You know the type, the boss who always wants to be the good guy, the leader who can't say no, the one who avoids confrontation like it's the plague. They're constantly trying to please everyone, making everyone happy, but never truly moving the needle forward. We've all seen it, right? And maybe, at some point, we've even been that person. I know I have. You try so hard to make sure everyone's on your side, and in the process, you're spread thin and not actually making any meaningful change. People might like you, but they also stop taking you seriously. You end up just being another face in the crowd. The truth is, leadership isn't about being everyone's friend. It's about making tough calls, driving progress, and challenging the people around you to become their best selves, even if it's uncomfortable. This is where provocative leadership comes into play. It's about being bold enough to speak the hard truths, to challenge expectations, and, yes, to make some people uncomfortable. Why? Because comfort doesn't breed innovation. Progress doesn't come from playing it safe and constantly seeking approval. Sometimes you've got to rock the boat to move things forward. People will dislike you for your decisions. They might question your authority or even talk behind your back. But here's the secret. You don't need everyone to like you. You need to be trusted, respected, and feared in the right way. And that, my friend, is what leads to real change. Let me give you a real-life example. A few years ago, I was leading a team project that had a tight deadline and no room for mistakes. It was crunch time, and I had to make some difficult calls. There were a few team members who were comfortable coasting through their tasks, taking the easy route, and not fully pulling their weight. So, I made a bold move. I called them out in front of the group. I didn't sugarcoat it. I laid out how their lack of effort was affecting everyone else. The room was tense, and for a moment it felt like the team might turn on me. They didn't like it. They didn't like me. But after that moment, something shifted. They knew I wasn't afraid to hold them accountable. They knew I would push them to be better, even when it wasn't comfortable. And guess what? That project ended up being one of our most successful ones. People rose to the challenge, and I gained their respect, even if I didn't earn their immediate affection. The real power of provocative leadership lies in its ability to empower those around you. When you challenge others, you force them to confront their own limitations and break free from the complacency that holds them back. It's not about being harsh or mean. It's about being real, holding people to a higher standard, and not shying away from tough conversations. This approach may feel uncomfortable at first, but it's through discomfort that growth happens. It's through the hard conversations, the moments of tension, and the fear of judgment that true leadership emerges. So here's the deal. You don't need to be liked. You need to be the leader who challenges, who questions, who refuses to settle for mediocrity. This isn't about being a dictator or a villain. It's about being someone who dare to lead differently, even if it means making people uncomfortable. Yes, it's hard. Yes, it might make a few people hate you, but in the end, you'll have their respect. And respect is what drives teams to greatness. So, embrace the uncomfortable, make the tough calls, and lead with the confidence that sometimes, to truly move forward, you've got to be the one who's willing to be hated for doing the right thing. Your space, your peace, and your dignity as a leader, they'll all be stronger for it. Number 7, the abandoned ship principle. Ignore your community's demands. What if I told you that sometimes the best way to build a stronger community is to ignore its demands? Sounds a bit counterintuitive, right? I get it. You might be thinking, but aren't we supposed to listen to our community? Isn't their feedback what helps us grow? Yes and no. While community feedback is important, there comes a point where you have to make decisions that are in the best interest of your vision, even if it means disappointing people. The abandoned ship principle is about knowing when to go against the grain, to step away from the noise, and to stick to what you know is right for you and your goals, even when the community disagrees. Now, before you dismiss this idea, let's dive into why it works. You know the type, the person who always bends to every opinion, every criticism, every demand from the people around them. Maybe you've even been there yourself. You get a flood of feedback. You should do it this way. Why don't you add this? What about doing that? And before you know it, you're juggling so many suggestions, your original idea has been completely watered down. You end up overwhelmed, confused, and stuck. You feel like you're chasing approval instead of pursuing your actual vision. We've all been there, trying to please everyone, only to end up pleasing no one, especially ourselves. The abandon ship principle isn't about disregarding feedback entirely. It's about recognizing that your community's demands are not always in alignment with your core purpose. Sometimes your audience will pull you in directions that feel more like distractions than authentic growth. What happens when you listen to every single demand? You lose your focus, your direction, and your sense of self. This principle is about prioritizing your values, your goals, and your unique vision, even if it means letting go of the expectations others have for you. Here's the catch. By doing this, you'll actually end up attracting more respect from your community, even if it's hard at first. Let me share a personal example. A while ago, I was building an online community for my YouTube channel, and at one point, the comments were flooded with suggestions. Do more Q&A videos. Why don't you collaborate with this person? Can you switch up your style a bit? The requests kept coming, and they were starting to distract me from what I really wanted to do. I was pulled in so many different directions, I felt like I was losing my own voice. That's when I realized, if I kept trying to please everyone, I would lose my identity. So, I took a step back and made a decision. I was going to ignore the pressure and focus on creating content I truly believed in, even if it meant disappointing some people. The result? It wasn't an immediate hit. A few unsubscribed, a few complained, but slowly the right people started to appreciate the authenticity of what I was doing. In the end, it actually strengthened my community. Those who stuck around were the ones who truly resonated with my vision, and those who left, they weren't my true audience anyway. Here's the thing. Taking the leap to ignore the demands of your community isn't easy. It requires a level of self-assurance that many of us don't always feel. But when you stand firm in your values, when you stop chasing the fleeting approval of the masses, you gain something far more valuable: your peace of mind, your creative freedom, and your integrity. It's about trusting that you don't need to bend to every whim to succeed. And most importantly, it's about recognizing that real growth happens when you're true to yourself, not when you're playing to the crowd. So, what's the takeaway here? Stop over-explaining, stop justifying your decisions, and stop worrying about what others think. This is your journey, your vision, your community, and you get to steer the ship. It's not about abandoning your audience, it's about choosing to lead them toward something bigger, something more authentic. The abandoned ship principle. It's not about running away from your community, it's about running toward your true self. Your space, your peace, and your dignity are all waiting for you to take that bold step. And trust me, once you do, you'll find that the right people will follow. Thank you so much for watching. I truly hope this video gave you some fresh insights and practical tools to help you build a strong, engaged online community. If you found this video valuable, please give it a thumbs up. It really helps out the channel. And don't forget to subscribe for more content just like this, because we're all about creating real, lasting connections online. Feel free to share this video with someone who might benefit from it. We all know how powerful a supportive community can be. I'd love to hear your thoughts and experiences, so drop a comment below and let's keep the conversation going. How have you built your own community, or what challenges have you faced? Let's learn from each other. Remember, building a community takes time, effort, and intention, but you've got everything it takes to create something amazing. Keep pushing forward, stay authentic, and keep showing up. Until next time, take care and stay connected.